This conference will now be recorded.
We're going to call the January 2022 Finance Committee meeting to order, 9:00 a.m. I saw that we had several that are on GoTo this morning. So if you are on GoTo meeting with us this morning, welcome. If you desire to speak, or if you have, especially on any particular item that we're going to be covering today, if you will let us know. I think there's a place for, is there a place they can type something in or something on? Is that how it works? I'm sorry. There's a check box. So we do have someone here that's watching, so they'll let us know if you're desiring to speak. And that's not necessarily a norm in our meetings with this, but I'm more than glad to accommodate and hear your thoughts if you have any today. So welcome. I also wanted to mention that we have Councilor Kennard with us on GoTo, and we're glad that she's doing well and the baby's doing well, but she is joining us by GoTo this morning. And then let the record reflect also that Councilor Roebuck is with us, and the minutes to reflect that Councilor Orpesa is not here this morning. So with that being said, if we could get a approval of the agenda.
And you want that separate from the minutes?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Yeah, then I move to approve the agenda as presented.
All right, we have a motion and a second that we approve the agenda as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Are there any corrections that anyone saw that needed to be made on the minutes? I did not see any. They're from the workshop and the meeting of September. Any corrections? If none, we'll let the minutes we'll let them stand as they are completed. So sorry, somebody's trying to get in touch with me there. Okay. So non-action items at this time. Let's go to the information reports.
Okay. Mr. Chair and committee members, so this will be just the December 2021 GRT report. Some positive trend here that we're showing. Actual collected in December is $3.3 million. And again, our projected budget had it at 2.7. So, you know, we've been seeing some positive growth in GRT. For the month, it's $568,000 more than what we anticipated we were going to receive. As you can see on this chart here, or the graph, those two peaks on September of November, as we kind of went through them last year, those were outside of the norm trend. 21 is a little bit closer to what we used to see now. And of course, now we all know that we're starting to see the internet sales coming in. So it's a good growth that we're seeing in GRT. For year to date, as you can see there, we have actually collected $19.4 million, and we only budgeted 17.6. So we're ahead by 1.7 million in GRT. And again, as you can see, the actual collection blue line is a lot higher than what we budgeted. So we anticipate we're going to be higher going into the second half of the fiscal year. That is, any questions on the GRT?
Questions on GRT?
Let me see.
That was for the.
Okay.
They're not breaking out internet GRT for us, correct?
That is correct. They are not. It's all rolled into the report. It's going to require more analysis of the actual report 500 to be able to kind of break that out.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Kennard, did you have any thoughts or concerns on the GRT?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on into the next one, Convention Center Operations and Lodgers Tax.
Just let me know.
Okay. Good morning, council members. I'm here to report on lodgers tax.
When this report was due, we have, you'll notice in your report, we have two larger hotels that have not submitted lodger's tax from September, October, and November payments. They have been contacted and are going through the process. Per our code, there will be a late penalty charge. We did receive 1 month since this was put together, but we are still missing now October, November, and December payments from those two hotels. Our legal team is very aware of the situation, and we are working through the process. Additionally, as of December 29th, we were missing Clarion, Crane Motel, again, Marriott Fairfield Inn, Town Place, La Quinta, and Roadway that were late for December. So when you're looking at your report and it looks like we are down, I believe that once we get those hotels to report, we will not be down. We'll be right, hopefully on par or a little bit above for collections and again for occupancy.
Is that La Quinta or La Quintana?
La Quinta, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I was trying to figure out what hotel that was.
La Quinta.
Okay,
Maybe I need a little,
that's all right. No, that's okay.
I don't know what you call it.
Vignette.
Vignette, yes. So we're hoping to get them in. One thing that I'm going to request of this committee next month is a revision to our current code. In there, it says that they are required to submit it on the 25th or by the 25th of the month postmark date. So what is happening is they wait until the 25th and then they are late, which then puts our report behind. And so it really, to be consistent with other communities, it really needs to be in hands by the 25th for the previous month, because that gives them essentially 25 days to give us their report. Most communities, they have 10 days, so we're pretty lenient. We're still getting them pretty late. Additionally, we have over 32 Airbnbs that are not reporting. We are also working with legal to identify those and also have a new company that is helping us track and have better reporting. Last, our bond interest payment in the amount of $68,000 will be due on February 1st. You'll go to the next slide for me. This is our collections for October. Again, it does look down. Our occupancy shows that we're only at 45%, but again, we have several hotels that are not reporting. So this really isn't a true and accurate number until we get their reports.
I think that's critical to for folks to know, because I noticed we had a writing in the paper that, said, that hotel occupation was low, and I didn't see that as being very.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in seeing that as well, because I wasn't contacted to, explain the numbers or ask questions about the numbers, but I did feel it was important for you and the council to know the reason that we are down is because we have so many hotels that have not submitted their report on time. And then of course, two of our major hotels that have the most impact to room nights haven't submitted in 4 months. So.
Okay.
Any questions?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Good information.
So on with the Airbnbs, and first of all, thank you for all the work on this. It's always a challenging kind of thing. You guys are the only really local people who collect taxes.
Well, here, yes, but not in other communities.
I'm sorry. You're the department that collects taxes.
It's not very fun.
Everybody, no, I'm sure it's not. I was wondering how if there's been any progress made on getting Airbnb to collect
At the state level?
At the state level, or even at our level. I know some communities, obviously it varies from state to state, community to community around the world. But I think that it's always gonna be challenging to collect from especially the ones that are just doing it as a side gig. It's always gonna be challenging to do that, but it would be certainly really easy for them if we can't facilitate that.
I'm sort of surprised. I own an Airbnb, and Airbnb does everything for me. All I have to do is tell them what the local tax is, what the local rate is. They handle all of that for me on my behalf. So,
but do they pay it out as well?
They don't pay it out.
They collect it together to show me what it is, and then we're able to make the payment. So it's not hard for people
It's
at
not-
all. So that's a surprise, so.
Yeah,
It's very interesting because we have some Airbnbs that are on top of
Yeah.
it. Just like you said, they collect
Absolutely.
it, they send them the report. It's a very simple drop down. Back to your question, Councilor Roebuck, my team, we will be going to the Trends Conference with the State Tourism Department and New Mexico Hospitality Association at the end of this month. And we've submitted some questions, and that is one of them. I know
Great.
that pre-COVID, that was something that they were working on. And then obviously the impact of COVID, things really changed dramatically. So we will be asking those questions.
sure. And I don't want to single any hotels up. Are most of these hotels working in somewhat good faith with you guys and not like
Yes.
they're returning your phone calls and such?
Yes, they are. And one great thing that you'll know, and it just kind of a change for our department, we just onboarded Rosie Duran as our accounting manager for the convention center. She comes to the city with great knowledge. She used to be their chief financial officer for the city of Las Cruces.
Okay.
She will be helping us implement our audit for our local hotels, Airbnbs. And so I'm really excited to have her on board
Sure.
to help us in this process.
Great. I think that obviously we have to collect those taxes. If we can always do it with a friendly face, that
Yes.
I think that means a lot. So
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
And the next one, same thing. Again, these numbers, these are convention center fees. You won't see true accurate numbers because that $2.50 obviously depends on their number of hotels, night stays, and hopefully we will get caught up. We will be sending out the reminders, usually the first month that they're late. We do give them a grace period, and then if they still don't, then that's when we implement our late fee. Next. I'll stand for any questions on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, concerns, thoughts? Councilor Stubbs, you're joining us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Did you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Did I hear Councilor Kennard?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just curious why there is a trend. I mean, do you deal with this on a regular basis, or is this something that is like a fluke and it's happening to more than one at this time?
That is a great question, Counselor. Normally we have like 1 or 2 hotels that are late. In this instance, 2 of the larger properties are owned by the same management company, and they transitioned to a new company that was not familiar with our process. We were not notified that they had changed ownership. And so that is where we have, given them some ample time to get adjusted. And we did get 1 payment from them. A couple of the others, they're just normally late. And so, couldn't speak to why that happens, but we really do try to be as graceful as we can, giving them, that leeway. It's 25 days. And so even after that, we really try to, give them an extra 8 to 10 days.
Okay, that I was just curious. I just didn't know, if there was an issue, but I see now that how that could happen. So thank you, Juanita.
No problem.
Ms. Jennings, let me just ask you, you talked earlier about changing our requirements as far as, when it's in hand. What day of the month do most communities?
The 10th.
The 10th. So, and if you're saying that you're giving everyone an extra leadway of 8 to 10 days, that maybe that's something that we do strongly consider and take care of maybe sooner than later. I know for me, the quicker I can get money out of my hands into my collectors, the better off I am. So maybe in the midst of us thinking we're helping folks, we may actually, be hindering them through the postponement of that. So I'd be very interested in hearing y'all's thoughts, at the next meeting,
Yes, sir.
to maybe how we can try to help rectify that. So, okay. All right. Anything else? All right, let's move on then.
All right. This is a request to kind of just give you guys an overview of convention center operations and our reopening. If you'll go to the next slide. Obviously, you guys know we have 48,000 square feet of facility. We added 23,000 with our remodel. This kind of just talks a little bit about the goal of our facility is really to book group events that generate overnight hotel stays. Please keep that in mind as I go through this presentation. That is our #1 goal and focus, because how we pay for this facility is through the lodger's tax and hotel stays. Our group sales manager is a vital player in our operations as well as our facility manager. If you go to the next slide, this is really just kind of a high level overview. I wanted to give you a kind of the sad Sally background. Obviously the effects of COVID, we did take a loss of $244,000. These were events that were already booked before March of 2020. We were closed from March of 2020 through October of this year. We were open for essential business only, but due to the current or the state mandates at the time, we were not able to host events. And so this was our projected loss with those events. If you'll go to the next slide, please. With that, we made the decision back in February to terminate our agreement with Spectra Management Company. It was not in the best interest of the city to continue to pay out a management fee without being able to host events. So we closed in February. During that time, we still did not know kind of the impacts of COVID and what it would have on us. Since then, and by July, things drastically changed, and so we needed to rethink our strategy. With that, we needed a team of people. We thought it was in the best interest of the city to hire some local people to run this facility. On this slide, this is our current staff. We are only short the one position for our event support specialist. David Reed is our general manager. I spoke about Rosie, she's our accounting manager, and then of course Elizabeth Michael, who is our sales manager. That is our leadership team. They are very important, as well as our executive chef, Mr. Hayes. Without him, we really can't do all of the things that we need to do. We have a variety of part-time positions open between the bartenders, the bar back servers, and kitchen support. One of the great things bringing Elizabeth on, we had about 110 people waiting to utilize the convention center. She started on a Friday. By Tuesday, she had 28 booked events without us really being set up and prepared to operate it ourselves from being closed. At the time of closure, we wanted to ensure that we were saving as much money as possible. So what we did is we eliminated all of our contract services, which included like our dishwasher, our sanitizer, our filtration system, our trash cans, things like that, our services. We kept up like our pest control and things like that. Obviously wanted to maintain the building. If you'll go to the next slide, please. This is our organizational structure on how it works. We have our facility ops team, we have our sales team, and then of course our kitchen and banquet staff. Next slide, please. Our capabilities have not really changed, but our focus has. Our number one focus is group sales. Again, trying to book things that will generate overnight hotel stays. Of course, we can do all of these things, but the focus and my expectation of this new team is that we need to generate events that are going to bring in people to the hotels. Next slide, please. One of the biggest questions that came up is our outside catering policy. We have an open process. It's an application that they fill out. We've previously, when Spectra was managing it, and even us, one of them, worked with La Salsa, Dion's, Albertsons, Loveless Regional Hospital, Popo's, and Sierra Mesquite Barbecue. I want to make it very clear that the city is open to other outside caterers. However, the use of our kitchen is not permitted, and that has to do with our environmental health permit. And outside caterers do have to be self-sufficient.
Explain that just a little bit, just for clarification. So you said because they don't use the kitchen because of the
environmental health. So we
explain that to us.
We can't go in there and temperature check their food and their preparation in our kitchen because they are not our staff. If they bring in outside food, we don't know how they've kept it, where they've kept it. And so in order to make sure that we're in compliance of our kitchen and our uses, we don't allow that.
Okay. Is that a norm within?
It is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I assume there's, I don't know, I don't think it's the right word, prep space, but there certainly would, I assume, are backstage areas they can stage
Yes. Mhm.
So there's facilities or
Yes.
things.
And we can also
You're just
do,
talking about like the kitchen equipment and
correct.
actually preparing food itself.
Yes, so we have a pipe and drape that we can actually put on the existing side. And then we also have a warming kitchen area, like a small room, doesn't have a ton of space on the new side that can be utilized and has been utilized. La Salsa is a perfect example. They hosted a 300 person event when Spectra was managing it.
Mhm.
Next slide. Just kind of an overview of capital projects. So we did have the sewer line replacement that has been completed. We have the exterior sound blocking courtyard fence. We met with the design architects. We're pending an estimate and we'll be proceeding with a funding request, hopefully to begin in the new fiscal year.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
On the exterior sound blocking courtyard fence, where exactly are we looking at with that? Because I know I've seen drawings of 2 or 3 different areas.
So it would go along the side of Main Street and then it would cut heading west up to, where that round cinder block thing is. And then it would cut south. The memorial would be on the exterior part of the fence because we don't want to eliminate anybody a family member of that memorial, not access to it. So we want to put it on the exterior side of the fence, especially if we're hosting an event and somebody comes in from out of town and wants to see the memorial. It will have 2 gates. Of course, we want to be able to have, outdoor type of events out there. But the biggest thing is that sound bearing wall that is needed on the Main Street side.
Now, we're talking about what will be the material used.
That is where we're asking the architects to come up with the plan and the design. Once we have that, we'll be coming before this committee to ensure that 1, you like aesthetically, 2, you like the numbers, and that it fits within the budget. We had met with a couple of designers. We had a little bit of transition with our internal staff, and so we're kind of restarting that process again.
Okay.
The other capital project that we have is the dais replacement. We are just pending estimates from the contractor. Ideally, we're hoping that this will be completed by the end of this fiscal year, as we do have some potential drawings and additions and suggestions.
And we're not looking at a complete replacement. We're looking at a
just lowering,
right.
Just lowering it just a little bit where the outlets are, and that's pretty much
right. Just want to clarify for anybody that may be listening or watching that we're
correct.
Looking at tearing a brand new dais out, and that after,
Correct.
sometimes there's things that you don't really know until after something's built and it's really too high, and we're needing to lower
Correct.
The visibility side for folks.
Yeah, it's taking off about, 12 or 14 inches just coming down so that you can see over, and so that it doesn't, you look more accessible, I guess. Okay. Next slide, please. So menu and rental offerings. So we're going to be designed, obviously, like we had in the past, to fit any budget. There's a la carte options, there are concession menus, there's plated or buffet options. Current costs range from $10 per plate to $60. It really is dependent on, the event, the size, how much the client would like to spend. Rentals and rates. So this is kind of our process. Hopefully we have a signed contract, initiates an agreement. They do have to have liability insurance. Food cater if they bring it in, or if we cater it, obviously, and then security if they are serving alcohol. We are currently using the fees that were approved by the council that are competitively priced. We've been very successful in our booking and really haven't had any complaints. Nothing really has changed from when Spectra was managing it. We're still offering for every $5 in food, they're getting a discounted rental rate. So sometimes their room rate comes out to maybe $50, just depending on how large their party is. Next slide, please. These were our quarterly goals as I submitted for a grant. This is what we worked on from July. Obviously, we're starting brand new and starting over. We had some good foundational pieces. We needed an org chart. We needed to post and hire staff. We needed to onboard staff. We needed to set up a sales system on how we're, tracking sales. Inventory was a big one. We needed to go through the pantry. Any food that had expired, we needed to clean that out. We needed to do equipment inspection. We turned off all of our stoves, and so we needed to have cleaning service. It's been closed for over 20 months. Installation of a new reception desk. So one of the new things that you guys will see as you go over there, there's a reception desk in the foyer. We have a lot of transient people coming in. We also need to be available 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and having one point of contact. In Q2 from October to now, we've ordered some plexiglass and other COVID safe practice items, hand sanitizer, things like that. We had a soft opening of group events, so we tested out the waters. We have a whole new team, so we needed to make sure that we're doing things right, we're learning, we're training. We're building our sales pipeline for hotel stays overnight for Q3 and 4. We're working on our sales projections and launching and targeting convention trade shows, meetings, and banquets. We registered for ABA. Our team will be heading out tomorrow, which is the American Bus Association in Grapevine, Texas, also supported and paid for by our grant. And then we assigned a marketing coordinator from our team to kind of work on sales, collateral materials, to really target regional and association groups. That's where we're at right now. If you go to the next slide. This is where we're headed. Obviously, we're going to attend our conference, learn a lot, and hopefully make some sales while we're out there. We're finalizing meal options, the menu that you saw on that previous slide. We're just about done with that and getting ready to print those. We're going to reopen to full capacity. I'm very excited and proud of the team that we have. We have a full booking in the month of February every single weekend, and we only have one weekend available in March, which is really great. We're going to continue training our staff and putting together our marketing plan. So one of the things that we will be in is Convene Magazine and meetings and conventions. We are targeting regional. We know that we can't hold things like a Dallas Convention Center or Miami, but we can hold regional associations and groups. In Q4, we're going to evaluate, where we were at, how's it working, and what do we need to look ahead for the next fiscal year and recap some opportunities and strengths. Our goal is to host an out-of-state conference, special event, and trade shows. We're going to prepare for our UFO festival as a host site. And then we have to renew all of our health license and operations of the facility. And then one other goal is I hope that we can sponsor, as the city of Roswell's Convention Center, a trade show and an association event. Next slide, please. And we are ready to serve in 2022. This is an image of our New Year's Eve celebration that the team put together. And I will stand for any questions.
Questions, comments?
Thank you, Chair. I think this is really good work. I like the strategic thinking behind it is critical. I think that's something that's we've lacked in the past is okay, what is the focus? I think it's important that you said, okay, you guys have a clear focus of putting heads in beds, as you like to say. I was about bodies in hotels, whatever.
That too, that works.
And so I like that a lot. I think one question, Civic Center is still part of the name, and I guess the question I have on that is, previous to the transition that got kind of hiccup with we'll call it a hiccup with COVID, a little hiccup. Previous to that, it functioned a lot more as a civic center, and I think that it's a smart economically for the community. It's a smart direction that we're going with it. Talk to me about that secondary role of civic center, because the civic center role is the part that is not putting heads in beds.
Correct.
Right? That is your civic center. You're talking about your local usage. You're talking about whether it's weddings or family events, stuff like that. How much of that are you seeing? And what's the long-term vision for that? Because I think the community, needs to understand, where does this fit?
Sure.
And then even as a city as a whole, because I am, at one level, I'm really fine from dropping the words convention center from that thing. So,
Civic.
I'm sorry, Civic Center, thank you. But if we do that, the city also has to have a plan, okay, what are the other facilities and places? So if somebody comes to and says, hey, we want to host an X, Y, or Z, well, this isn't the right place for it, but we do have, the adult center or the zoo or the whatever. So can you speak a little bit to that about that? What's happening with the Civic Center part as our constituents? We want to know that as well, because that obviously affects them.
Right.
Here in town.
Our focus, obviously, our number one primary goal is the convention aspect, putting people in the hotels, staying overnight. We want to be a resource to the community as well and are willing to work with any budget, nonprofits, local groups. We have already booked some local nonprofit organizations to host their monthly luncheons, 2 different groups. And out of that, we actually got a regional association to book their conference there. When we have the community come, and we do have a lot of requests, they will get to come and meet with our chef. They will get to meet with our sales manager. We would love to push them out before taking them in, because again, that's really not our focus. But if they are adamant about being at the convention center, we are ready to serve for them. Our price points are very competitive, but again, if it's a group of 150 people for a wedding, we're really not the place that we want you to be at. We have some other local venues that are far better. And when I say far better, that are probably a better resource for them. Our strategy really is we will take anybody, obviously. We'll work within any budget.
Sure.
But again, our goal is really the overnights. We do have lots of requests. Like I said, March, we're doing a local event, like a big dinner. The challenge that we have, and I see it as an opportunity, is we are the largest capacity in the city. So again, we have to be that resource for this community when they have an organization that is putting on a fundraiser that they want to have 400 to 500 people.
Sure.
We're not going to turn them away. We are going to be there and we're going to provide them the best competitive rate so that they can make some money too. That's kind of our focus. And
okay. It would be fun to see in the coming year or so for the city to say, okay, these are the other venues. That's obviously there's private venues, and we do have some great private venues.
yes.
But these are the other city venues. What's the museum offering? What's the library offering? What's the zoo offering at the places to say maybe the convention center isn't the right fit, but really have that kind of in a one-stop shop or one pamphlet kind of thing. So that we can, because I don't want the community to feel abandoned by the city. And I don't think the city is abandoning the community. We need to be sure that we're communicating that through this transition. So I yield. Thank you.
Councilor Kenner, did you have anything to add?
No, I agree with Councilor Roebuck that we need to, and I think Juanita really stressed that they're going to do the best they can to accommodate any budget. So I just wanted to echo that. I think that's important. Thank you.
Yeah. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 kind of insignificant kind of questions, but so forgive me. The fenced area that you were referring to, how many square feet approximately, or what can it accommodate?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I do have the square footage of the perimeter that I can provide to you. I know that we are looking at least 300 to 400 people.
Oh, seriously? I didn't realize it was that large.
It's a very large space because we would have all of the concrete padding that is there.
Right.
And then we have all of the grass area. That is there. That round rock art, one of the thought processes, maybe that's where a fire pit can go, or something like that, just depending. We have to have space for like, a stage where, maybe they're doing boards or things like that.
Tent,
something like that.
Oh, that's great. I didn't realize it was that large. How many entrances are there then from the meeting rooms in the convention center? There must be at least.
To the outside?
Yes.
There's 2 per panel area.
Okay.
4 doors, actually, I believe, off the top of my head.
That's what I'm trying to envision. Okay. So there'll be a good flow process.
Yes.
Okay. then this is a really stupid question. Sorry, Mr. Chair. But one of the drawings you showed earlier of the convention center, you showed tables, one with 6 people and one with 10, I believe.
Yes.
So is that table, I'm assuming the 10 table is larger and we
Yes.
have those already?
60-inch and 72-inch tables.
Oh, okay. I didn't know we had the large ones.
So when people, want to have an event, sometimes they want to have a group of 10, sometimes they want to have, a more intimate setting, a group of 6. We have more of the smaller tables, the group of 6. And I mean, a lot of it is banquet style. We were very fortunate to have a local company here in December. They had almost 400 people. And so we had to use, a combination of the large and the small tables to accommodate them, just because, they had a lot and were very gracious to us to give us the opportunity to do a banquet setting. It was our very first one with that many people.
Great.
But it worked out really, really well.
Okay, so does that change the capacity, I guess?
It does. So depending on how many tables they have, our capacity inside is however they set it up. So our capacity on theater style is different than banquet style because we have to accommodate for the table. Our capacity for classroom style is different than theater style because now you have the small classroom tables.
Right.
And that is one of the things that we're working on is creating that brochure of this is our offering.
Okay.
This is what we can provide. And you can customize it, especially when we're trying to target these conferences. We want to have rooms that maybe they need a classroom style, but then maybe in the next room they need theater, and then they need a banquet or they need a breakout session. So we want to have that flexibility. And with the equipment and the tools that we have, I think we're going to be in really great shape. And especially with the interest that we're already seeing and the team, we have a go-getter that really is, I mean, our calendar is pretty full through the end of March, and we're already starting to book May, June, July. So there is interest from the local community too, and there really hasn't been a huge pushback on pricing because it's essentially the same. It's the same thing that Spectra was offering. The only difference it's local people and we're not paying a management fee.
Okay, good. Mr. Mayor, did you have anything? The only thing that I would say is, and I don't remember for sure, I remember when I first came on the council, it was a big thing that we had to keep in mind and consider. And I don't know if there was a time frame or if we met the obligations, but I know that some of the funding, when the convention center was turned over to what it was, the requirement was to have that civic center as a portion in that. So, and I don't know if there was a time that was a requirement as part of that. Yeah, I was surprised as well. Yeah, so.
If I may, Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt. The original grant that I think was an EDA grant, if I'm not mistaken, said that it had to be a civic center. And so that's why the original name was Civic and Convention Center. And so that was where the money came from to do the original conversion. Right. And the reason that location is there is because the old Coca-Cola building is well qualified as an upgrade or whatever the EDA wanted. So yes, it was required. Whether there was a time limit on it or anything.
Obligations.
I can see if
just a thought. Okay. All right. Anything else that you had to offer to us today?
No.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Let's move on to our action items. So now let's consider the resolution authorizing the disposal of certain surplus personal property.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mr. Glenn is not with us today, but I'll just briefly go over the action items. And this is just our recurring monthly resolution to dispose of surplus property, which includes vehicles, equipment, and various departments. The Exhibit A in your packet is for items under 2,500 and Exhibit B is for items over 2,500. And I think in your packet, you will see the exhibit which lists vehicles as well as some office equipment from the landfill, the vehicle, wastewater, water maintenance and transmission, and as well as the police department, various pieces of equipment. And it does provide for an auction reserve price on some of the items. And again, Mr. Chair and committee members, this is just a monthly, and there are additional items that will be forthcoming in the next couple of months. We're trying to clean out as much as we can out there of old items that can be disposed of. We'll stand for any questions.
I just wonder if he was with us today, if he would be in shorts. I wonder.
That first question, that's going to go unanswered.
Any questions or discussion concerning the resolution for the personal property disposal?
Just want this to go to consent.
Yes, sir. I will entertain a motion.
Fantastic. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve and send to the consent agenda item Resolution 22XX authorizing disposal of certain surplus personal property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize going to consent at the next city council meeting for the resolution authorizing the disposal of certain surplus personal property as listed in the exhibits. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, now move on to the zoo. Let's discuss the items and discussion considerations there.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I would like to actually have Mr. Wright give you the presentation for today's meeting. He doesn't have the PowerPoint on there. Let me go see if I can.
I brought a copy if you need it.
Yes, that would be great. This is there's a couple of things in this action item. One of them is to increase the security measures and upgrades that we currently have. And the other one is to request funding for the design of our bear exhibit, as well as fencing. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wright here in just a second.
Let's give them just a moment. They're trying to get a presentation.
And then did the chair see that request to speak?
Yes, I did see we have a request to speak from someone. So those that are requesting to speak will need to hear the presentation first, and then thoughts from counselors, and then we'll allow public participation with that.
The middle one.
That one right there.
Yep. Okay, first slide, I guess. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of the things that are going on at the zoo. One of the things that we realize is at the present, we don't really have overnight security. So prior to my start, I believe there was some initiation to look at what we can do to improve the security. We have had some Wi-Fi upgrades. We're looking at utilizing 10 of our existing poles for lights that already has the electricity, that has some Wi-Fi and some other internet capabilities. But this will help us to actually have cameras installed that work off the Wi-Fi system. And not only will they be around the perimeter fence, but there'll also be near other activities to our concessions, admissions, things like that, that will allow us to assess kind of what's going on. And these upgrades will also allow us to view staff. Any city staff with access should be able to go ahead and access the video cameras online. So that way our first responders or anybody else ahead of time can actually see what's going on and whatnot. So the quote that we got from J&G Electric was for $139,022.84, and that is based on the Roswell Independent School District's RFP with the state bidding based on kind of what's already standing, I believe.
Next slide.
The other one is the needed upgrade for our perimeter fence. During a recent USDA inspection, they cited that there were several areas, almost 3,600 some feet, that were not of adequate height. Because we do have mountain lions and bears, the recommendation, according to the regulations, is 8 foot. I think we kind of already knew that. A lot of the wooden fence is at 8 foot. The new perimeter fence that we put in near the section of the new pond work was 8 foot. It's just slowly working on replacing the remaining fencing. So that being said, as I measured out, with the exception in the southwest corner where the pond is, excuse me, that's the new 8-foot section. Everything else is about that 6 foot. So, oh, well, I'll get to that. So nonetheless, that's most of the perimeter fencing that we need to bring up to 8 foot. We did talk to a local fencing person, Farrell Clem, with wrought iron or custom wrought iron and fencing, who does a lot of our other work, and he's kind of priced out some deals. When we talked to the USDA, we also let them know that if they were to set a deadline, supply chains are an issue right now. And so that's why we have such a variance in the cost, because it all depends on who we get it from, when we get it from them, do they have the supplies and whatnot. During that conversation, Farrell also let us know that right now, sometimes wrought iron fencing per linear foot is $2 to $3 cheaper. So we kind of went with that one. And so my recommendation for this is to use the 9-gauge chain link fence for the majority of the fencing. But in the northern part where the parking lot is, that straight line, I'd like to have a decorative wrought iron fencing. And I brought a metal cutout of the bear, so we can actually make an artistic entrance as well that has a nice appeal for our guests. They still think Atkinson's is opened and whatnot, but having a nice wrought iron fencing, potentially with some updated gates and the whole bit, would actually say this is our entry. So we can kind of play around with how much wrought iron and that whole bit, but the goal of it is we're looking at, with installation and materials, depending on how much chain link and how much wrought iron, is about $120,000 for installation and materials. Next slide. The other one is following our 2018 master plan, where we discussed basically the farmland experience with funding from the community. So I really looked at the master plan and really looked at that entry area. We want to provide something that will attract guests to the zoo as well as to the community, improve the quality of life for the animals that we would display in our farmland experience and whatnot. So for that, our plan is to hire a firm to help us take the master plan and actually bring it to a more precise conceptual ground level drawing for our guests, so that we can also produce renderings that would help us kind of campaign for any remaining funds. So, but I really refer to as more of the bells and whistles and the finalizing of all that design work. Then from there, we can use those conceptual drawings when we do bid out the actual construction area plans as far as that. So that's our initial stage. So between doing the artistic renderings and the actual construction plans for then we would bid out using those construction plans, we're estimating about 10% of our $4 million projected budgeting, or $400,000. We want to utilize some of the money that Leprino has set aside for us, as well as the ARA, or the COVID relief funding of 1.5, which will then, like I said, allow us to look for grants, sponsorships, and other donations to fill any of the other gaps that we would have in that process. Next one. The next thing is we have kind of talked a little bit about our bear exhibit and the needs for upgrades and the need to improve their welfare. So also looking at the 2018 plan, is the original plan calls for the bear exhibit to be exactly where it's at, which would mean the bears would have to be relocated. We'd have to demolish the whole exhibit and then build another exhibit. That could take a few years. So better understanding the lay of the land and kind of what we want to do, and also bouncing off the master plan, we kind of want to utilize the area for the exhibit where the audads are at. And then also where the coatis and the raccoons, or the baling cribs are right now, we would almost make that area a holding space for the bears. So we would be able to construct and then transfer our bears into a new exhibit habitat that would have enough space for climbing structures, natural substrate, get them off the concrete. Our holding facility in that area would also be modernized and whatnot for us to allow the staff to work a little bit better. So that's kind of our tentative plan. But right now we also need, next slide, is once again to work with a architectural design to actually give us construction plan. My goal is to also make a decorative holding building. So it would be like people would go into a cave and we wouldn't have the glare that we currently have like the mountain lion. But we could also blow cold or warm air in a viewing area, much like that, to attract the bears and have them have a choice of cooling off or warming up. But it also puts them in a position that our guests can see them a little bit easier as well. So pulling in those other aspects, the landscaping for this particular bear exhibit that I just pulled off the internet, ours probably wouldn't look like that, but we would definitely increase vegetation. It'd definitely be grass and get them up off the concrete, give them opportunities to explore digging. We could also throw a bunch of deadfall in for them to tear up and do enrichment, things like that. So that's kind of where that 60,000 is, just to help us with the design work to build that. Okay, next slide. So putting together those 4 aspects is basically video security, fencing security, the 2 design projects. We're asking for $720,000 for all 4 projects to move forward on these growth and opportunities for us. Out of the American Rescue Fund and the Loprino grant money.
So let me start out with the questioning. Let's go through a little bit of a time frame. If this was awarded, what kind of time frame do you see with the video security?
That depends how fast we can get our stuff off the coast of California.
I know, and that's something else.
We ordered some cameras, 16 cameras for animal control. It took almost 4 months to get them here.
Okay.
A lot more than just cameras, because it's all Wi-Fi, so it's all point to point. It's all affected by it.
Well, that shouldn't take a couple of days to do that much, right? I mean, you're great at what you do.
I just mean the availability of that.
I know. But once we have it in hand, do you foresee a major amount of time to get installation done? And
once everything's planned, I bet you everything's here 3 to 4 weeks probably.
okay.
It's going to be a little slower because it's all working off the poles.
But there are things we can be doing while we're waiting for the equipment to get here, determining exact locations and getting other things together. Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we actually already have a map and a layout of where all of these would be installed. So that part of the work is done, and we've been working with IT to.
Right, and on the building itself and the maintenance building, all that can be pre-wired, just waiting for cameras to come in.
Okay.
And that portion will be all hardwired in. All the wireless is going to be all the place they're up in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Now I want to reiterate, yes, there'll be security watching, the concession stand and stuff, but this also gives us the opportunity to better protect the animals that are there. Kids and sometimes want to get funny or whatever and want to go in and think they're going to do things. And this adds a layer of protection for them that they've.
So if you came for the Halloween event and some
Yes,
of the poles didn't have lighting, because I'm trying to figure it out, but apparently we worked with J&G and we found the switch.
Oh,
So I can tell you now, all those poles have electrical, has all their needs and whatnot, now that we better understand where that switch is.
okay. Mr. Mayor.
Couple questions. Is this going to be video or just going to be freeze frame?
It'll be video with a projected 90-day storage.
90 days is a long time to store. I'm just saying, if there's an issue, you're going to find out probably within 96 hours.
But the reason we done that was with Aaron when he was here. What happens, they have 60 days to file a complaint with the city. If we only hold it for 30, we lost all of our interest, and that was where we based our 90 days from with Aaron.
All right.
Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
No, just those 2 questions.
All right. Anything concerning the video?
No, keep going. Sorry.
Fencing security, there again, all determination on being able to get the product here. But what kind of time framing will we be looking at?
The USDA has given us an April 30th timeline to complete the project.
Okay.
When they originally had cited us and talked about it, I did ask them to consider the supply chain issue. So obviously the sooner we can get that funding and get it going and get it ordered and get it here is kind of the critical aspect. They do want to see a good faith effort. So even if the supply is not here, a good faith effort, starting the project, approval of the project is going to be key.
Is the company that you have spoken with and worked with, are they part of the state?
We have done several fencing projects with them already.
Okay, all right. And any questions on the fencing? The farmland entry design, what kind of timeline would we be looking like with that? And let's go ahead and say that with the design as well.
Help me out, Juan, is we last week actually sat down with a New Mexico architect to talk about conceptual renderings already. I don't overly have a timeline on his process. He is trying to schedule a visit to actually see the site, to see what we're trying to do. He does have master plans and a conversation with us as on this project as well as other projects. So I don't really know if he needs a couple of months from once there's an approval to get the project done. From there, we actually now have the artistic rendering of, 8 drawings and kind of the lay of the land with what we want to do. And then once we will actually have a real stamp on, if this is what you want, it costs X dollars, then we will probably have to do look at any state bidding contracts that are already out there to utilize architectural firms, or then potentially do an RFP for someone that's a little bit more specialized in zoological exhibit designs. So I would just sit there and say that'd probably be about a 3-month turnaround to do the RFP and the approval process. I'm learning this all as I go along, to then put it out. And I would probably say with a conceptual or construction area design, we could probably put about a 6-month from start of project to finish before we could then bid out to the actual construction area deal. So we can give them a timeline, and that might also affect the price of the constructional designs if we give them a timeline. But I would say 6 months would be reasonable, considering we would already have conceptual ideas of what we want, and we're not overly reinventing the wheel. It's still an entry building. It's still a farmyard. So most of
concerning the bear design, because I see that as a major priority to get pushed through very quickly. Is this going to be the same firm handling the farmland design and the bear design, or
it could be 2 different firms?
Okay.
There are zoo design firms out there that do big projects, let's just say like Albuquerque, and then there are some out there that I know that specialize in $500,000, $1 million or less type projects as well that are specific to that. That number comes based on what I looked at with the mountain lion and the cost that it costs for that, and then 10% is we can keep a lot of the same holding management building side of things, but definitely decorate it up to be more, and that's going to come into the construction area cost, where we have the cave and the rock work and maybe even a viewing that you're in a log cabin viewing out into the exhibit, the decorative bells and whistles. That will affect the construction area cost. What I'm asking for right now is just the exhibit design cost. Then we can figure out what the cost of the actual construction area project. It would then allow us to know what we need to fundraise or finance for.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members or thoughts?
Sure. Yes, thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for this work. The zoo's been an interesting a journey that the council's been on over the past 4 years. We're looking at this, a lot of, 3 years ago or so, and just think what's going to happen to the zoo. It had been neglected. We had complaints from internal and external issues, and the council approved the master plan, and I'd rather use the word master guideline. Because we certainly want our staff, and Mr. Wright's expertise to inform that, which we didn't have at the time we made that plan. And so, and he knows, I've told that to him, I've told that to Joe as well, that, the most important thing with the guideline or the master plan is that we have a vision for the future and we want to invest in this. I cannot tell you how pleased I am. I spent a lot of time out at the zoo, and I've been out there in November a lot for the past 6 years or so. And this November, we had crowds of visitors at the zoo, and that was the first time in how, I don't know how many years. And I assume the bulk of them were. Well, I don't know if they were, I'm sure some were tourists. I know they know. They have some idea, and some were not. And I was I am just so pleased that, through the efforts of the council, working with staff, we've been slugging at this thing. We've been swinging at this thing, but we are making progress to take something that was a dying asset and turn it into something that not only benefits our local community, our children, education, has all those aspects to it, but also we get the double benefit because we're a tourist town. The tourists that go out there, and the tourists that go out there, they really enjoy it, and they're going to enjoy it so much better when we're able to put a little more money into it. And I can't tell you how, as a counselor who's been working on this with the rest of the council, we've been working on this, how pleased I am that we have turned a corner. And I do want to say that it does, all this comes down to, ultimately it comes down to leadership, and certainly Joe and Juanita, and now having John there on the ground is it's going to make all the difference. And I am excited for the future of the zoo, what it's going to bring to our community. It's going to raise the quality of life in our community. And I'm thrilled that you guys are bringing this to the council. So I yield.
One question I have that it doesn't pertain to this necessarily, but it's something that we're dealing with right now. Our ticketing area right now has been just a pop-up tent. I know there's been some discussions on getting that changed going into winter. What are we looking at for a temporary fix on that?
We have a PO that's now approved for portable portables. We're bringing in an 18 by 50 foot building that's already on their lot. So we don't even have to have, our original goal was to bring in a custom made 16 by 40 foot building. We found other suppliers that just couldn't make the dimensions of anything that we needed for a gift shop. So we went with the portable portables. We're buying the one that's on their lot. We are now trying to make sure we have the permits to put the building kind of almost right there on the parking lot, right where it's at. And then hopefully then we can get our staff, once that's laid out, at least out of the weather. And then I can't overly tell you about the fixtures and where I'm going to get them yet, but we've estimated a project just to be about 45,000 with the building of about 30, and then flooring, walls, a little bit of lights, a little bit of environmental deals like that. That building itself, when it's placed there, will be a temporary until the new building gets put up, and then that building will be relocated down to the pond.
Okay.
As kind of a fishing lodge. So we'll be able to reutilize that building and strip it down and then relocate it, but we'll still have the fixtures. We'll still have some of the other brackets and things like that we can use for the gift shop. And that will give us a better idea. But the goal is people will come in through the side of the building, through the ticket booth window, walk around the zoo, and then out through the gift shop. And then hopefully we'll get a few more dollars per head as they exit through the gift shop.
Okay, fantastic.
So, but as soon as the permits are done, we'll have, thank you very much. We'll have a better idea of how long it's going to take us to turn around to put in the tile flooring, the fixtures and the walls, and whatever other electrical needs we have.
Okay. Councilor Stubbs, do you have anything, Mr. Mayor?
Go
ahead.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just if I'm reading this abstract correctly, the entire project that we're discussing here, this is only part of it, including the farm and the build, all of that could come to around 6 or so million, correct?
Yes.
So are we also estimating or planning where the additional money is coming from? I mean, I know we hate to start a project and not be able to finish it. So we have potentially identified.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Wright covered a little bit of that.
Yeah.
The whole idea is that we have to have a plan. We have to have a picture.
Sure.
And we're going to go out and collect sponsorships, just like we did with the mountain lion exhibit as well.
Okay.
And we do have the Leprino funding to help us on that broader side. In the presentation, they talked about that entryway, the farmland exhibit being right around about $4 million is what we expect. So your numbers are really close. We think it'll overall, with everything, it's going to be around $6 million. But in order to solicit interest in individuals to contribute to it, we need to have the plan in place. And I think that's where we're going. We're trying to get the pieces in line, you know, as far as the goals to reach out to that, and then we will seek the funding. There's always the opportunity for legislative funding as well. That'll help take a little bit more weight off. And then, of course, then we'll come back to our own internal funds if necessary. The challenge with some of these projects is because you don't have the entire scope written out. You got this vision.
Yes.
Is that we've got to have a very good idea of what it will cost us in that future amount. And so we're putting that all together.
Okay, and that's my point. I just want to make sure that we're looking ahead at what the final is going to be. And it looks to me like we're about 2.5 million shy of identifying that much money. So
yeah, and because the time frame is out a little ways,
certainly
the Farmland exhibit, we don't want to mess with the system and say here's where the money will come from, because you know there's a pecking order within how we would like to see it.
Sure.
The big thing on the Mountain Line exhibit, when we get the support of the community, the project becomes so much stronger. When there's people that are actually believe in that. I will tell you that there are some bear advocates out there that will assist us in making a better home for our bears too. So as we walk down through there, and then at the end of the day, the city funds work really well as kind of a gap closure within that process. We close out the gap, we finish out whatever the project is with our funding. So rather than to set somebody's mind down a path of where our money's going to come from, I'm tiptoeing around it. You can tell.
No, and that's fine, and it's also appropriate.
Yeah,
so I appreciate that. I just wanted to know, Mr. Chair, that the thought process was in place, and so I appreciate that. Thank you.
I see Councilor Kennard has her microphone on. Did you have something to add, Councilor?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You know, the zoo is a touchy subject, I think, with a lot of our constituents and people. I really do feel like we have made big strides moving forward to preserve the zoo. When you look at the zoo, you know, it has been a fixture in our community for a very long time. Just as the rocket slide was. And so, you know, I think that we're doing a very good job to try and accommodate people that like the zoo in our community, and, you know, do our best to upgrade where we need to, because I can't imagine if you tried to take the zoo out, what kind of, you know, backlash we might receive for that, because it has just been a fixture here. So I think that we are doing the very best we can to address the issues that need to be addressed and maintain the zoo in our community. I know Juanita has some really good information, I would imagine, on ticket sales since we've started charging, because that was another issue in the community. But it's necessary so that we can maintain this facility for the community's use, for our visitors' use. And just like, you know, I know that Joe talks about having this expectation of excellence. It takes time and money to get to that to get to that status of excellence. So I just hope that people out there realize that we're really trying to meet that expectation of excellence, and we're doing the best that we can, but it will take some time and money and effort to get there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We do have one person on GoToMeeting that is requested to speak on this issue. Forgive me if I say the name wrong, but Rebecca Smudzinski, if you are still online, if you can unmute, and if you would please state your name just out loud once again, and your address for the record, and then you're welcome to speak with us at this time.
Hi, thank you. My name is Rebecca Smudzinski. I'm a New Mexico resident. I live up in Taos County, and I'm speaking on behalf of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. The 2 black bears at Spring River Zoo have been confined for years in that concrete pit that denies them the ability to express any natural behaviors and causes numerous long-term health issues and psychological damage. Despite repeated offers by PETA to transfer the bears to an accredited sanctuary where they would have acres of natural terrain to roam, the city has refused. If the council approves the funding request, PETA urges the council to require a strict and speedy timeline for the completion of the plans and construction, and an assessment of the plans prior to approval by reputable bear experts, ideally the Bear Care Group, which is a nonprofit organization led by the world's foremost bear experts. PETA understands that the city's resources are limited. Therefore, the city must prohibit the zoo from monopolizing those limited resources by acquiring more animals until all existing enclosures have been appropriately updated, or by devoting extensive resources to construct inappropriate enclosures, as it is done with the new mountain lion enclosure. All the animal enclosures at the zoo are archaic and inappropriate. So improving the zoo to provide minimally acceptable conditions will require a huge financial investment by the city, but it cannot wait. If the council determines that the city lacks the resources or the desire to make this investment, the animals should be immediately transferred to reputable facilities that are capable of providing them with the care that they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today and the time you've spent waiting to speak to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other discussions from committee members or from staff at this time? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
How many animals has the zoo killed? Russell Zoo. How many of our animals have we killed?
None since I've been here.
How many animals has PETA killed?
I don't have that data.
But they ran an animal shelter in Northern Virginia, which was notorious for euthanizing a large number of animals. Is that not correct?
Historically speaking, that is correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, if there are no other comments or questions from staff or committee members, I would entertain a motion at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we recommend to full council approval of the cost estimates for exhibit and security measure upgrades for the Spring River Zoo.
From the American.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. We need to identify that funding.
Yes.
Okay, if you can identify that from the American Rescue.
Sure, from the American Rescue Fund.
Okay. Is that good for clarification, Councilor Kennard?
She's still on mute.
Councilor Kennard, you're still muted. A caveat to that motion is that it comes from the American Rescue funds. You're okay with that with your second?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, the button wasn't working. So I heard that, and that is okay with me. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We have a motion and we have a second that we place that we make a motion. The motion is in favor sending it for recommendation of approval of the amount of $720,000 for the zoo, covering video security, fencing security, farmland entry design, and bear design to be brought from the American Rescue Plan funds on the regular agenda of the next city council meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Let's move along to the budget adjustments for fiscal year ending June 30, 2022.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. This is a housekeeping item and it's our budget adjustment to end fiscal year June 30, 2022. A detail of the adjustment is provided to you in Exhibit A. You have an updated packet with some corrections on it, so what was actually posted is not accurate. Okay. In revenue.
The updated.
In revenue, we are looking at a total increase of $336,000, consisting of the sale of auction items from various funds for $189,200, and administrative and logistics support fee, which is 10% of the sale of the auction items that are incurred for the storage yard and the auction itself. It's $19,700. Additional donations received this fiscal year is 27,100. And then we have $100,000 for the Roswell Great Blocks Grant. In expenses, we're looking at an increase of $2,442,500, consisting of the same auction items for $189,200, the administrative and logistics fee for $19,700. We have a settlement with the Eastern New Mexico Medical Center for hospital charges of $249,100. The purchase of a parks mower for $119,100. Budget authority to use the restricted donation funds that we have of $628,000 by various departments that received those donations. Budget authority for the police to use their JAG federal grant funds. $20,000 for the golf course for the purchase of a beverage cart. $74,100 for the landfill to repair damage from the flooding and the levee break last summer and fall. $185,800 for the water department for the VFD project. Additional funds of $130,100 for wastewater for the reconstruction of 3 manholes on North Atkinson. That was approved at the the December 9th City Council meeting. $637,300 additional funds for wastewater for the North Garden Sewer Replacement Project that was also approved at the December 9th City Council. In transfers, we're only doing one, which is a transfer from the general fund to the golf course for the beverage cart. I stand for any questions.
So a couple of questions I have, the $249,000, the settlement for the community health systems hospital charges, is that inmate? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, it was the medical clearances for jail intake. And so we were able to reach a negotiation with the hospital as to that. So that is the total amount. We will see no further charges for that in the future, as Chavez County will be responsible for those medical clearances of jail intake. That is their policy that is requiring that it be complete.
And that's been clarified across the board.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. That is wonderful news. Thank you, Mr. Neb, and whoever else was involved in this. That's a huge thing for us. So thank you. The other question I have is the landfill, $74,101 for the damage from the rainfall and the levee break. Do we believe that there will be any monies coming our way to help with that, or is that just the city's bad luck?
Sure. Go ahead.
I did speak to Karen with our emergency management group, and we did not qualify. The damages that we got did not qualify to receive any of those funds. So these funds that we used was part of our operating budget. We weren't anticipating to use it all, because if you know, with that large rainfall, the entire landfill was majority dirt into a huge mud bog. So we scrounged, moving money around to maintain the operations, to keep our public service going. And this is where we come to kind of reshore some of those.
Now, I'm not an expert in this area, but surely somebody is. Is there an estimation of a percentage of what damage was done by rainfall versus levee break? Is there a estimation?
I don't have one that would even be close to what the approximation of what was happening. I assume, I mean, in most of our reviews of how the system would have operated, if the water could have gotten into the channels, it appears that it would have been manageable within the process. So the rain coming down, the failure of infrastructure is what I believe caused most of the damage.
And we don't see any kind of course of action with that.
At this point, no. I believe that it was, a lot of the issues happened outside of the city limits as well too. So the impact of the city was fairly limited. And so we don't believe that there's anything that we'll be managing in order to try to collect any other costs. It did not reach the thresholds for what FEMA requires for the cost of that, and that's why we're having our own recovery.
But just for clarification for me, because 74K is, I recognize that in a budget like ours may not be a lot. The 74K out of one department, that does become a lot. And so we've got to make that up from somewhere. And that may be monies that have to come from streets or may have to come from another service but anyway, I just wanted for clarification that information. Any other thoughts, Councilor Roebuck? Councilor Kenner, did you have any thoughts?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Mr. Mayor, Councilor Stubbs. Okay. I will entertain a motion at this time.
Consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend to the consent agenda the full council resolution 22XX budget adjustments for FY22 budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second that we send to the consent agenda the next full council meeting, the resolution that takes care of the fiscal year ending June 30, 2022, amending the budget with the resolution. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by the same sign? Motion passes. That is all the business that I see. Did we have anyone in the room that desired to speak? Anyone online that desired to address the committee? I don't see any microphones going on or off, so we will call that. And we thank everyone for coming to the first meeting of the new year. Our official time of ending is 10:22. Thank you for your time this morning.